I smelled her before I saw her. Copper and scorched composite, rising off the canyon floor where her lander had plowed a furrow through the red shale. By the time I dropped onto the ridge spur, the rest of the circle was already gathering, wings folding and unfolding along the rimrock, talons clicking against stone in the rhythm we use when a kill is close but not yet ours. She was sitting upright against the wreck. Not lying. Sitting, with her boots planted and one hand pressed flat against her side, where the armor had torn and the blood had already darkened the dust beneath her. She looked up at the 11 of us perched along the canyon wall and did not move otherwise. Tarn Holovec, ranking by kill count that season, dropped first, landing on the wreck's tail fin with his crest raised full. 10 breaths, he called down to her, in the trade tongue the Death World traders had taught half our hatching circles. It was custom, not mercy. The flock never killed anything that hadn't been given its measured time to try. A kill that didn't struggle wasn't worth the count. She didn't answer him. She looked at her wrist display instead, tapped it once, and said something to herself I didn't catch. Then she began. I want to be honest about what I expected. I had circled 14 kills in my 3 seasons of flight, 8 of them Deathworlders downed from troop carriers, and every one of them had spent their measured time the same way, screaming, praying, scrabbling for a weapon they'd already lost, or running, which was worst of all, because running only told us where to land next. I expected this one to do one of those things. I perched on the spur with the others and waited for the panic to start. It didn't start. She tore a strip from her undershirt and packed the wound at her side, methodically, the way a person folds linen they intend to use again. Then she checked the angle of the sun against the canyon wall, checked it again, and shifted 6 inches to her left, into the shade thrown by the lander's broken wing. She's hiding from the light, Vec said, and several of the circle clicked their throat plates in something close to amusement. I did not click mine. I was watching her eyes, and her eyes were not hiding from anything. They were moving along the ridgeline, slow and deliberate, the way mine move when I am counting roosts before a long flight, not searching for an exit. Counting us. At what I judged to be 3 breaths gone, she reached into a side pouch and drew out a flare cartridge, turned it over once in her fingers, and set it down beside her right hand without lighting it. Then she did the same with a short utility blade, laying it parallel to the flare. She did not reach for either again. She simply left them where her hand could find them without looking, and went back to watching the rim. She arms herself and does nothing with it, said Ressa Coral, 2 perches down from me, the youngest of the circle and eager to prove her crest. She is already broken inside. The blood loss has slowed her mind. I had flown longer than Ressa Coral. I did not think the human's mind was slowed. I thought it was the opposite, that everything extra had been stripped away from it, the way a flock strips down to bone weight before a long crossing, and that what remained was doing exactly what it intended to do. At what would have been the 5th breath in the old count, Vec grew impatient with his own custom. He dropped from the tail fin in a short glide, talons forward, meaning to end it early and claim the kill before anyone disputed his rank for it. It was a small violation. The 10 breaths were not yet spent, but I have seen rank holders bend the count before, when a kill looked finished enough not to matter. She moved once. I did not see the whole of it. None of us did, and 11 of us were watching from a height that should have caught every motion in that canyon's flat afternoon light. I saw Vec's glide path bend wrong. I saw the blade that had been resting by her hand no longer resting there. I heard the sound a wing makes when the bone inside it is no longer doing what bone is meant to do, and then I heard Vec on the ground, making a sound none of our hatching songs have a name for, because nothing in our hatching songs ever needed one. She did not stand to do it. She had not stood at all. She had simply turned her wrist 8 degrees and let his own dive carry the rest. The canyon went quiet in the particular way that only happens once in a flyer's life, where every wing on the rim stops mid-fold at once, as if we'd all heard the same warning call from a source none of us had located yet. She picked the flare back up, weighed it in her palm, and set it back down. She had not used it. I understood, watching her do that twice, that she had never needed it, that she had laid it out only to see which of us would react to a tool instead of to her, and that the answer had told her something useful about rank and reach, and which perch held the one who'd move first. Before Coral moved, two of the older flyers tried something more careful. Mo Sindri and his bonded partner Tull dropped together, on opposite arcs, the maneuver we use to split a wounded grazer's attention between two threats it cannot watch at once. It is a maneuver that has never failed us against anything that needed to look in order to react. She did not look. That was the part none of the elders believed when I told it, and the part one still do not fully understand. Her eyes never left the rim the whole time Mo Sindri and Tull came down from opposite sides, and yet her free hand found the flare cartridge a half-second before Tull's talons would have closed on her collar, and the flare went off close enough to his face that he broke his own dive rather than finish it, screaming in a register that sent 3 more flyers scattering off the rimrock entirely. Mo Sindri, coming in from her blind side a heartbeat later, met the short blade instead, and did not scream at all, which was somehow worse to witness than if he had. She had used the flare after all. Not as a weapon against a body, as a weapon against an angle, against the one approach she had judged, correctly, would otherwise have worked. I understood then that nothing she had set down beside her hand earlier had been left there by accident or by exhaustion. Every object had been waiting for the one shape of attack it was built to answer, and she had simply been patient enough to let us choose which shape we'd try first. Coral broke formation next, younger blood overriding the lesson the rest of us were still absorbing. She came in low and fast, the way we take ground prey that hasn't noticed us yet, except this prey had noticed everything, every wing beat of us, since before the count had even started. It ended the same way it had begun, without a sound from her, without a raised voice, without an extra motion spent. Coral's flight ended on the canyon floor a wing length from the wreck, and the human sat exactly where she had been sitting, her hand resting again on the dressed wound at her side, her breathing unchanged. 9 of us remained on the rim. None of us dropped. I watched her check her wrist display a second time. Whatever clock she kept on it, it had nothing to do with the 10 breaths Vec had granted her, and I understood then that she had never once been counting toward our measure. She had been counting toward her own, toward the moment medical evacuation, or her own reinforcements, or simple blood-clotting biology, would change the math in the canyon, and she had spent every motion in between making certain that whoever came first found a flock too thin to matter. She looked up at the 9 of us left and said nothing at all. She did not need to. The silence she left behind her did the only talking the canyon required. I am the one who carried the account back to the high roosts, because I was the one who survived long enough on that ridge to leave it on my own wings, not carried in another's talons the way Vec and Coral were. I have flown circles over down Deathworlders 11 times since, and each time I have stayed higher, and watched longer, and waited for the screaming that no longer comes. We had given her 10 breaths to die in. She had spent them instead deciding, with total stillness, exactly how many of us would not be flying home, and the wound at her side was still bleeding when the last of that decision was made. I do not know what name her own kind have for what she did in that canyon. In the flock's hatching songs now, when the young ones ask why we no longer give the measured time to anything wearing that gray and green armor, the elders only say one thing, and they say it without raising their crests at all. We stopped counting for them. They were already counting for us.